Once again, greetings and you're most welcome to this episode of Community Voices UD on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. In this episode, we are digesting the crisis of disaster management in Uganda, and we're paying keen attention to the Kiteezi crisis that happened just a couple of days back, to be specific. About 4 or 5 days have passed ever since the garbage fill after Kiteezi went into motion after heavy downpour that led to, as we speak, 34 people are dead. We have a couple of others in hospitals undertaking medical attention, but also hundreds displaced from their homes, and property in millions is destroyed. So it is a sad subject we have to talk about as a country, as a city, especially at a time when we should be discussing a couple of other things linked to economic growth and security and sustainability, but also our ability to compete in the development agenda of the world. Nonetheless, it is here with us, and before we even move quite further into the conversation, we would like, on behalf of Civic Space TV and on my own behalf, send sincere condolences to the individuals out there that lost their lives, and it is sad. We join you in sorrow, and we hope the good Lord will judge you well. Colleagues, once again, you're most welcome. I am Phillip, and as we get into this conversation, I will invite you to talk to us briefly about yourselves and give us a feel of where you are. You know, we are in very different parts of the country, so talk to us about where you are and what you think we need to know this particular moment from your exact location. I see we have someone who says they can't seem to unmute. Nyaribi, Rhoda, please try going off and coming back again, and we can see whether that can help. So once again, you're most welcome. And as we start our introductions and talking to us about your environment, you tell us your location and what we can know about your location right now. You can talk about the weather or perhaps the security or any eye-catching moment that we should know about your specific location. I should start with, let me start with Jamir. Talk to us, unmute and talk to us.
Yes, good morning, colleagues. My name is Jamir Birende, and Jamir Birende is hailing from Kawakazi City, Masaka City. I'm the clerk to council, Masaka City.
Yes, you must welcome, sir, from Masaka. How is Masaka, and indeed you being the clerk, what is the environment like in the city, especially in line with what we are yet to talk about, the disasters and specifically garbage management? Bring us to speed about how Masaka does its thing.
Yeah, I'm grateful. As the Masaka City, of course, generally want to condole with the country generally about that instance in Kiteezi. And I want to tell you the panic is relatively high on us, especially because like those of Kiteezi, we also have more or less a similar landfill. Ours is in land, much as of course as that of Kiteezi, but you never know. 2-3 years from now, it could be the same story. So it's panic all over us, and I know it is interesting that we are going to talk about this topic.
Thank you so much, Mr. Birende, Jamir, and thank you for bringing us to speed as to how things are unfolding in Masaka. And we hope there's a lesson to learn that such a tragedy does not happen in the near future in Kawakazi City, like they call it, Masaka. Let's hear from Gift, unmute and talk to us. And please, let's keep the video on.
Good morning. I hope I'm audible because I'm having problems picking some of the voices.
Yes, we
But
can hear you.
okay, perfect. So for me, I'm in Namere, but this side close to Masoli, and the weather is not so cloudy, but I think it will rain because yesterday in the night we really experienced heavy rains. But regardless, that is how we are. Yes, the panic is real. Especially, I'm not really like the immediate person, but I can say that I really panicked because I imagined sorts of things. Given that the rains are continuous and they keep on coming, you never know what the impact and magnitude and how far this hazard can really move. For me, that was to be on part of my psychological kind of well-being that has been my worry. Yeah, but that's it. And yeah, so that's me.
Yes, thank you so much. Gift from Namere, and of course that is really close to the crisis area. And Lady later will give us a bit more detail of what the situation is like and how, in your assessment, the response has been so far. Thank you so much. Let's listen from Mavuya. Mr. Mavuya, kindly unmute and talk to us and also brief about your environment.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Phil. My name is Mavuya Chris Bwambale. I come from Kasese district, and I am the district youth councillor for Kasese district. I sit in the district council. I'm glad that you've heard from Clerk to council. Well, it has people having fallen under that catastrophe. As Kasese district, we always witness such disasters. I hope you guys always floods, droughts. So I really feel the pain of those people of Kiteezi. Well, Kasese is hot as usual. That is why you see me every time I have a handkerchief in a hot environment. Security-wise, we're okay. Being at the border district, government always deploys there heavily. So generally, you're okay. And we're expecting rains to come this month, at the end of this month. So that is what I can introduce myself about for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mavuya Chris, and greetings to the people in Kasese. And of course, the subject that we discuss on this episode is one that is not so unclear to the people of Kasese, especially with, like you mentioned, the rainy season is underway, and we know how River Nyamamba usually behaves in that particular area, but also a couple of other man-made incidences, rebel activity, and so many other activities. So we can't wait to hear more from your experience, but also what it is like in Kasese and how people are preparing for the unfolding situation. I guess the other person has lost their connection, and as we wait for them to join in again, we shall kickstart the conversation. Now, colleagues, our country, Uganda, has faced a series of disasters, but the most recent ones we talk about now, you talk about the Kiteezi incident, which has been described as a man-made disaster that we've had to experience as a country. Garbage was filled in this particular landfill that was acquired way back in 1995, and as we speak in 2024, hundreds of thousands of tons of garbage had been piled in this particular location, and following a heavy downpour last Friday, We had garbage develop cracks and swim through to people's houses, people's farms, to people's businesses, and as we speak, 34 people have been confirmed dead. Police says they're still looking for at least 33 bodies of individuals, but also we have a couple more who are in hospitals that were able to be rescued at the time. Those numbers are independent of the other hundreds that are looking for shelter as we speak. Many people are in tents and camps that have been set aside by government to see that they can be rehabilitated and given a semblance of shelter and comfort as they wait to shift to different areas. This has not been the first. Over time, we get landslides in Bududa areas. Yeah, you talked about the challenges that usually come about in when you talk about Kasese, Rivanyama, that region, and how it behaves during the rainy seasons. Talked about the rising water levels a couple of years ago on the moving islands on Lake Victoria and River Nile, and a couple of other disasters that have befallen this country, including drought in the northern and northeastern part of the country. We've talked about famine in Karamoja and a couple of other very bad situations that have unfolded in this country. I want to start with the lady Namere, Madam Gift. See, yes, we've read these stories. Some of us have been to the location briefly, but you who is within the vicinity of the crisis, talk to us. How is the situation like near and around that area? How are people behaving and responding to the situation? What can you talk to us about that particular place as we speak now, in your own assessment?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I think the very really first days when it happened, actually that day when it happened, the panic was real. And given that for me, this was the first time I'm seeing such like waste, creating that hazard. On and time and again, we had really seen natural disasters, maybe floods, um, landslides, and all. But for me, this was the very first time, and I could not really contemplate it and put it together. So I was like, how does this happen? And as I'm going to my village side, it is deep, deep, deep away from Kiteezi, and then you go in. So I had to really go and see how does it happen? Because for me, I couldn't contemplate. I knew there were heaps of rubbish, but I was imagining, okay, how does it then, destroy houses, destroy property, and all. But the panic was real on the very first days because people were being rescued. I heard that there were some of them who had not yet really died, but were calling to be rescued, especially those who were in their homes that were covered. So of course there was so many people, and they were stopping, like people from coming really close and all. But when you look at the nearby areas, of course, yes, we don't know what is going to happen, a higher altitude. So those were the questions, and people were talking about it a lot. Oh, so and so, so and so, this has happened, like it was the topic on people's mouths. Because I think for me, I got to hear it from posts or watch television and what the community says, and then what is out there on television. But as time went on, I could say that nearby areas, more of like business as usual, you know, like we as if they have moved on, unless you really had someone who was okay, unless you're like you have been affected, you know, maybe you had your people around there or something, but some of them business as usual. I have seen trucks of rubbish. I have seen trucks of rubbish taking this normal route that they use, and in my head, I'm like, are we still going to throw rubbish there? It's been kind of like the preparation towards that. But I've seen trucks of rubbish move. Of course, they're still collecting rubbish from all these places and the trucks move, but I'm not so certain of their final destination. But last time we were talking about it and we're like, are trucks of rubbish still going to go to that place? But what I know is right now, I think uh, the number of those people that have been really rescued is still not corresponding to the people who reject. So I think there might be still people we are missing out who could have died. And the other story continues, but it's really depressing. But I could say the nearby areas, it's like people have moved on, and unless you're really affected, but people have really moved on. Once in a while, when it comes to the news, yes, we hear, okay, this has happened, this is something new. But as you said, yeah, it was for me, it was shocking to see it within town, given the fact that those camps and, you know, rescue things, I have seen them outside, you know, not within the town council, but kind of outside. I have seen them in Kasese. I was there when Nyamwamba had that all over. So I have seen at least that, but it was very shocking to see that it is happening within town and you're having, you know, rescue tents, and was new, I could say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that account of how you firsthand interacted with the situation, but also bring us to speed up on how people were responding and having conversations about this particular issue in that particular area. I want to bring in at this point Mr. Jamir Birende. You see, when you listen to the lady, Madam Gift here, she talks to us about how people were in panic and how it was very uncomfortable to look at and to imagine and to see unfolding. When you see this, and a couple of other instances that have happened in Bududa, talk about Kasese, talk about the areas of Karamoja and so on, we seem to be so vulnerable and at the brink of a disaster at any particular time. Is that so? Are we that vulnerable?
Well, thank you so much. I want to thank my sister Gift Chiraboy for that insight. Generally speaking, Uganda as a third world country, we are definitely at risk. We are vulnerable to such occurrences, of course, for a number of reasons. One, there is a very, very, very wide gap in as far as disaster preparedness is concerned in relation to our the knowledge on how we are supposed to overcome. What I'm trying to mean is in Uganda currently, I think generally Africa, there's a lot of, I don't care mentality. The I don't care mentality is on the rise in this country. And that cuts across all levels. It, of course, it affects us. It is within us as leaders. Leaders in this country don't do enough. And when I talk of leaders, I don't only mean central government. even us at local government, at local government level, they could be LC chairpersons, they could be, councillors, maybe district authorities, both technical and political. So we are vulnerable. Come to our people, the led, the ordinary men and women of this country. There is that mentality that people want to think that, this country is because of other people, so they don't care on what happens. That is actually going to cause us a number of problems in this country, and we are yet to receive more of such. Because for a case in point, Kiteezi, what is that went wrong for us to appreciate that indeed this country's backbone is agriculture? What is that is wrong for our people who are the manufacturers of this garbage? What is wrong with them for them to appreciate that before you dispose of garbage, you have to sort it out? You get this that is recyclable, get this that can be used in the farms, and sort it out. Let these others, the polythene ones, the plastics that can't be, that can't easily
Do not decompose.
Yes, burn it off if that is the nearest that we can do, But there is a mentality that people think it should be so and so. It should be KCC doing this. It should be local government. Even us.
Mr. Birende, the point you raise is very important. However, one, the reason people elect leadership is to be led in initiatives that safeguard their safety and health care. But two, when you look at our population, largely the whole country, do you think every other individual out there has this kind of information that, actually, there is an element of decomposition somewhere, there is an element of recycling? Who has given them this information?
Well, though not to a big extent, but this information is available because in every local government setting, there are those health inspectors, yes, who do actually this work, the health assistants at the respective divisions and sub-counties. Of course, we don't have so many of them, but even those who are available have tried doing their role. They mobilize, they sensitize our people, but are our people willing to listen? That's the other challenge. But generally, at the level of the high leadership, a lot has to be done, of course, ranging from sensitization, how we have to sensitize our people generally, because some of them could be knowing, but the sensitization is not enough. And so if we took on sensitization right from the word go, let the media houses in this country talk about this. Let's all of us at our respective levels sensitize our people how it is important to manage well garbage. Okay. The issue, the instances of flooding and all the others all originate from garbage management, because the plastics that are just displayed off anyhow are the ones that end up in the garbage collection channels, and they block them, and these are the floods that we're experiencing. So generally, Uganda is vulnerable until when we do massive sensitization. Massive sensitization.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. I want to bring in Mr. Mavuya from Kasese. Earlier, you talked to us about now that you people in Kasese are getting into the rainy season, and every time that season comes, the people that live near the banks of River Nyamwamba, but also in the highland areas, know what is coming. River Nyamwamba is certainly going to go overboard, water is going to overflow, and people will be affected, animals, gardens, and every other place. We have a crisis in Kiteezi currently. what is the conversation like in Kasese in terms of making sure in case River Nyamwamba overflows, not as many, or even we don't lose anything in terms of lives and property and so on? Mr. Mavuya, please unmute and talk to us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phillip. First of all, I guess you guys are listening to me. Okay. I want to first pause and pond about what Mr. Birende Jamir has said about garbage management. Actually, let me first generalize it through crisis management. In Kasese, we have 8 rivers stretching away from the border of Congo, of DRC, up to Fort Portal, Kabarole district. And all those rivers come from the same source. However, when they reach somewhere, they come from the Rwenzori Mountains deep there in Congo, in the forest called Virunga. Virunga is also a mountain. So when they reach somewhere, they make tributaries, then they go the president
You're breaking. You're breaking.
Government has always sensitized our people not to stay near and talk about me there. Well, can you get me well there now? Okay. Now, what I was saying is that our people have always been sensitized about to stay near river banks, because whenever floods hit, many people lose lives, property, and each and everything. So Uganda is one of the countries that has the best constitution if we are to follow the laws very well. But we don't follow the laws. We don't implement the laws. So you find that we are just staying in areas in we, if I can put it to a layman's language, it's okay. What comes may, or something like that. We are not serious about that. So when I try to analyze the situation of Kiteezi, I have quite followed the trend, and I have seen that Kiteezi has been around since 1996, around there. And it stays on a very large land, around 20 acres of land, whereby almost on a daily basis, more than 1,000 tons of waste are dumped there. Now, in Kasese, we came up with a law at the district whereby we opened up a factory that makes manure. We opened up a factory that recycles these bottles, plastic bottles, and then these other boveras, the polythene bags, for them they're just burnt off. And indeed it's working for us, because we advised each and every homestead to have like a pit. You dig a small hole of around 2 to 5 feet. Then the district cars that carry that garbage, they come and buy your garbage. So that is why each and every person is concerned to keep his or her garbage, and we advise them when you are dumping your garbage in your pit, make sure you separate the plastic, polythene, and then this one that decomposes, so that when the district buys them, they again make manure from them, and again they sell it to the people. So for the case of Kiteezi, I am still trying to figure out why people in a decomposed garbage is not like soil whereby it will become stiff. No, it's soft, it can easily fall at any time. And you see, another challenge is the overflow and poor waste management practices. That is also another challenge. I think that is why those people face that calamity. And also, lack of proper infrastructure and maintenance. That should be another issue to pause and ponder about.
You, Mr. Mavuya, for that detailed, and it's very encouraging and interesting that in Kasese actually something is being done, especially in the line of garbage management.
Also, to me, I may think of
yes, conclude. I want to invite in Madam Nyaribi to talk to us. You're most welcome, and greetings, welcome, and talk to us about your general overview of the disaster situation in the country at large, but also our ability to manage and overcome such challenges.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself then because I was experiencing that technical challenge. So my name is Rhoda Nyaribi, and I work with Mbale City as a principal environment officer. And basically my comment about what is happening in the country, about the disaster situation issues in the country. What I would like to say is that these issues of disaster are actually real, and they are happening in different forms. For instance, I just want to give an example. For us here in Mbale City, I have been working in Mbale City actually now for the last over 16 years, but we used to only hear about disasters around us. And these were majorly the landslides that are happening in Bududa. We would have a few mudslides happening in the Mbale district, up in the hills, but nothing much happening like in the city. Not until 2021, when we experienced flash floods in the city, and it really took us by surprise as a city because we had not prepared for this. We didn't even expect it. We didn't even anticipate it because we had been experiencing floods, but small floods, not to that magnitude. So here came big floods, flash floods, killing up to, well, around the region, killing up to around 30 people, with about 26 of them dying in the city. This was really an awakening call for us as a city, because we were not prepared. Like I said, we never had even a disaster management committee as a city. We never had a plan. We had nothing. So it gets us, and we are really disorganized, and and I think this is not only happening in Mbale City. I see much of this happening around the country, because I think we are also not doing our vulnerability assessments as a country very well. Because, for instance, who imagined we would have a garbage slide coming up as a disaster? We've been used to landslides, mudslides, flash floods in Kasese and all this, but no one had ever imagined we would have a garbage slide happening like this one we have just had in Kiteezi, and unfortunately having lives lost. I think that is really unfortunate, and as a country, I think we need to wake up and do things right. What we've been trying to do as a country generally, we have the policy, the disaster preparedness and management policy in place, but I think our priorities are not right in terms of funding. What we do in most times is we do very good paperwork, have the policy. The districts have been encouraged to put in place the structures, the disaster management committees. I mean, sometimes these committees are formed, but they are not functional. Why? Because the funding is also not forthcoming. So I think as government, we need to set our priorities right, have most of this paperwork that we have prepared and shelved implemented. Because, for instance, if you have your assessments done right, the disaster risk spaces, you gazette them off, and then sensitize people like one of our colleagues was talking about, but then get to move people out of these dangerous areas. Then even if, a disaster happened, maybe would not be having such losses of a magnitude leading even up to death. So I think we need to set our priorities right. We need to implement the plans and the laws that we make. The example I want to give is when we had flash floods in Mbale, and most of the people who were affected were these people that are actually living along the rivers and the streams that we have in the city. But believe me, it is just about 2 years ago, and all these people have resettled back into those disaster areas. So in case we had heavy rains and another flash flood coming, I'm telling you, we are going to even have a worse disaster than that. So the issue is, how do we sensitize our people to appreciate that they need to move? It is something to do with, life or death. How do we gazette these buffer zones to ensure that people are not encroaching in these unsafe areas? Like Kiteezi, for instance, I had been to Kiteezi not so long ago, and I had seen that this place is actually full. It was supposed to be decommissioned. It was supposed to be closed off. We shouldn't have had garbage still going to Kiteezi because it was already overwhelmed. The place was already filled up. And KCCA, I think 10 years ago, they bought land and they should have opened up that new space for the landfill and started dumping in that place and decommission Kiteezi. But because most times we just take things for granted, we are not serious, we end up having such disasters that are unfortunately leading to the loss of life. So my advice is we really need to implement most of these plans and policies that we have in place with support from government to allocate resources in the right sectors. That management has been ignored.
I had something to come in.
Madam Nyaribi, conclude your point as I bring in Mr. Birende. I'm going to bring you in the next couple of minutes. Thank you so much for that detailed overview and idea of how Mbale looks like and how such things happen. She talks about something to do with the resettlement of people after disaster and so on. And this brings me to a bigger question of the planning, how we do our settlement planning and things to do with infrastructure planning, where will it be, where will it pass, how does it have environmental assessment techniques. And we have a series of institutions in line for these things, including the KCCA, for example, here in when you talk about the Kampala metropolitan area, talk about the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Disaster, we have NEMA, we have all these institutions in the country. Mr. Birende, you who is in management now in the local government, how much do you people pay attention to planning to see that where people settle, it is not a buffer or risk zone for a particular disaster that may happen in the near future or in the far future? Yes, Mr. Birende. Because as you respond, I know you've had a comment on some of the deliberations made earlier.
Yeah, thank you so much. In regards to my sister's submission, I want to applaud her for that detailed overview. And but as she was submitting, I also tried to contemplate, when do our people take life more serious than survival? I don't know whether I'm communicating. there's a general tendency of our people yearning for survival at the expense of their life. I don't know whether you people have been observant about this. To an extent that even when you warn people that, you know, this is a risk, a very high risk area for you to, it's a no-go zone for you. Our people shall deliberately, under the guise of, you know, it is a means of survival. I have no other options. I have to be here. When shall our people appreciate that, you know, it is more important to have life than survival?
The key thing you mentioned there is survival and the lack of other options. What do they do in that case?
I've had instances. For example, I heard that the KCC authority had actually informed the people there to vacate. I heard from the deputy ED that there was a warning that had been, you know, that had been put for some people to vacate. And yes, deliberately, and like how my brother was saying, my brother from Kasese, people here seem to be adamant about their life, and this has made planning for government and all other agencies very difficult. Look at the current move by NEMA. Make sure people are moved away from, you know, those buffer zones, and people are seriously criticizing NEMA and you know, I don't know. So, but going forward, to respond to your question, generally the goodwill is generally there in as far as planning is concerned, because at local government level, you realize that there's an element of environmental conservation in each and every budget of a local government and government generally, to ensure there is that, you know, conservation, planning generally for disaster and the like. For example, for the case in question, this is garbage collection. For example, the one in Masaka, the landfill that we have in Masaka, is a small one, but for more than 3 years, the city has been planning to have a better site. You know, the constraints are planning at local government is the financing. I want to be realistic with you. For example, the authority here, the leaders, and political are willing to say, no, Orlando is now almost getting full. We have to look for an option, or we have to look for other better garbage collection techniques. But the financing becomes a problem. Okay, the local governments are suffering, so that makes us poor planners in the end. Then the other thing is generally our people. I have a problem with Amandi said here. Our people don't appreciate certain initiatives, because even when we are trying to get, say, we're going to get some space, to get some other space from where we can be dumping off, the people who could be having capacity to handle this on their land are not willing to give in land. If they are two, then they will charge you exorbitantly, thinking, you know, this is a government, they have a lot of money, not knowing that that is actually a service that is going to help the whole community. So realize the whole thing goes back to financing.
But you see, Birende, we have chosen to lead a capitalistic world, and that's what the capitalism requires of an individual. Profit as much as you can from that you have. Briefly.
Yes, I am actually in total agreement with you. I'm in total agreement. But then how about if such occurrences happen again? What happens? Would you have enjoyed, you know, okay, much as of course you would have gotten a lot of money, but where that is not good enough. The other thing in terms of planning.
Yes, briefly.
There are initiatives. There are initiatives that are being taken on. For example, of recent, we received a team of investors who actually wanted to venture in garbage collection in the city. And I think this is some technology that has to be embraced by all of us, by all local governments in this country. And once it is embraced, we may not have any occurrences, any further occurrences of such garbage related disasters. That technology, I think, is from Japan. But the whole idea is, you know, once this garbage is collected, coal is actually produced from this. So I think that if that technology is embraced as Masaka State, we embraced it, and I know once this rolls out the rest of the local government, it will be embraced, and perhaps we shall not have any other occurrences of the kind.
Thank you, Mr. Birende, for that. Madam Nyaribi, I can see you have a hand up, but I'm going to bring you briefly after gift. Gift. You see, all these deliberations are being made, but we keep having the same challenges. When Rhoda happens, we talk about the planning bits and nothing is done. When River Nyamwamba happens, we talk about the same things. When we have drought in northern Uganda, we talk about the planning. But in the end, we keep doing nothing, and we keep having the same cycle of tragedy and our people dying and property getting destroyed, animals dying, and so on. Where is the challenge with us linking the planning from all these entities? Because now we even have a whole manifesto of the NRM government that talks about the disaster, but also we have the National Planning Authority. What is the challenge between linking the planning to the execution on ground that should, in the end, prevent such occurrences from happening? Yes, Gift.
So thank you. I think my view is going to be from like understanding of a layman, because I'm not really into political, but what I understand is yes, we do the plans because they will draft them out and release them, communicate them in the community. Even our leaders on ground will be a part of this manifesto. So planning is one bit, but then I think the problem we're having is from planning, then how does it flow through execution, then assessment, and maybe then after we have assessed what we have planned, then what are we supposed to do? So Uganda as a country, given the other factors that the people on the panel before have been talking about, we are having a challenge with that. Because I believe there are some of these few things that can be done, even if we say, yes, there is little resources. But what is also like the resource distribution to execute these plans? Because I think sometimes we overlook some kind of incidences, and maybe when they are planning, they'll say, no, we are going to do A, B, C, D, but we overlook this because I believe that people in the planning department, especially those ones that are really responsible for the environment and all, should have cited this, because I've had someone say that, okay, no, people had raised alarms, that this heap had already started, separating, and it would have caused what we are seeing now, but everyone was reluctant, yes, because no one thought that this would happen, or they thought, no, this is not really crucial at the moment. But I believe even with the little funds that we have, because as citizens, we have tried. Speaking for myself, I have tried to really contribute to this, social kind of thing. I mean, I'm paying taxes, I'm trying to do waste management and, at home, yeah, burn what you can, and then maybe use the rest as manure. If it is taken away, how do we segregate all that? So as a citizen, for me, I feel like I've done my part. Now, the people in the planning, how do they distribute the logistics? Yeah, and then how do they account for the logistics? Do they have a department that is really going to be looking at how are we going to assess our work? Yeah. For me, that is really has been the gap, because so many initiatives have come in or have been said out there, but we never see anything really productive coming through. So that is really my challenge when it comes to that.
Thank you. Madam Nyaribi, I know you wanted to respond to something a little earlier. Please go ahead and respond to it. But also in your response, you can talk about now the possible strategies that can be undertaken now, especially at local government level? What strategies can be taken in line of prevention of such disaster from happening in our communities? Yes, Madam Nyaribi.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just allow me make a small comment. My colleagues have already said a lot about planning, but this is what I want to say, is that in regards to planning, the whole country, Uganda, was declared a planning area. And all local governments are supposed to prepare physical development plans. But as I speak now, just giving an example of the 10 cities that we have, probably only maybe just 3 cities have physical development plans, and the rest do not have physical development plans prepared. So just imagine a situation where all local governments, all cities and all districts and, prepare their physical development plans, because in these physical development plans, you're also going to zone out different areas to say, these are settlement areas, these are forest areas, for instance, these are agricultural, zones, these are protected areas that are probably fragile, along rivers, along streams, along lakes, along like highland areas which are risky. You zone out and say these should be reserved for this kind of purpose, and then you guide all kinds of development, because when you have the plans, then you are able to guide all forms of development, and in that way you are reducing actually a disaster. But then the challenge is that most of these local governments, we don't have the physical development plans. Even the few that have the plans, implementation of these plans is actually not there because of issues of funding and all that, and political interference and many other factors that come into play. So for me, actually, this is one of the strategies that we could adopt to ensure that we have physical development plans, and then we ensure that these plans are actually implemented. And that will actually help us in reducing disaster. Because if you zone out an area and say this is high risk, it's mountainous, maybe above this altitude, no settlements, let's do tree planting. Then even if you're going to reduce landslides in those areas, because the trees are there, the roots are tapped into the ground, and the soil is not coming down. So the landslides have actually reduced. So people are not affected. There will be no disasters, or even if there are some landslides, they will be limited, or at least the land will slide and it is the trees maybe coming down and some soil, but not people. So that is one of the strategies that we can actually to ensure that we reduce disasters. The other one is, as a country, I think we don't have early warning systems. Yes. Disasters just come and find us unaware completely. And yet, if people had information to alert them, that probably we are expecting maybe this amount of rain, and we are likely to have floods of this magnitude in this area, and therefore we are asking all people to vacate, or we are asking people not to cultivate in these areas in this period. I mean, those early warning systems would help to notify people, to help people be evacuated, to help, us not to experience really these disasters in the magnitude that we are experiencing.
Thank you, Madam Nyaribi. I'll bring you in a little later to give us that conclusive remark on how we should manage this whole issue. Mr. Mavuya, you hear from all these speakers. I want you to talk to us now, because when tragedy happens, there are impacts, things to do with mental health, things to do with losing property, things to do with, loss of life. How can we rehabilitate victims of circumstance in terms of disaster, especially now we talk about the people in Kiteezi, but also by extension, the people in Bududa, the people in Kasese, the people in Karamoja. How can we rehabilitate them to see that they get back on their feet and be progressive and constructive citizens of our society.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phillip. Before I go on issues of rehabilitation, I'll first talk about what Madam Rhoda said, because issues of about planning. For example, I'll give an example of Kasese. Government owns 70% of land in Kasese. The people will stay on around 30%. Because when you see the National Park of Queen Elizabeth, we also have Mount Rwenzori National Park. Those ones take a very big chunk of land. We have lakes, we have rivers, prisons owns a lot of land, UPDF owns a lot of land, and other government sectors. So people stay on only 30%. So you see the scarcity of land in Kasese. People run out to stay on these riverbanks, lake shores, national parks, near the mountains, which flood a lot. So I don't know what can be done. Maybe God should intervene and see where people can stay. But another issue is population growth has not been controlled a lot by government. Now, on issues of rehabilitation, I request that you'll give me just a few minutes and I give you around 12 points how we can rehabilitate these people to get back to normal life. And
let's make it really fast because our time is actually very fast.
I'm just going to read them out. Number one, there should be an emergency response whereby they provide immediate assistance like food, water, shelter, and medical care. Guess government is planning on that. Then health support should be there. Health services should monitor. You know, these garbages come with a lot of diseases that are related to waste exposure. Then environmental cleanup. They should organize the community-led cleanup initiatives, removing hazardous materials, because I know these things are prone to kids. They're going to play with these wastes and they'll get various diseases. Then there should be also waste management education. Government should endeavor to educate communities on proper waste disposal. Then livelihood support. They should provide training, resources, and support for alternative livelihoods. Then also psychological support. I know people are psychologically tortured, and that is a very dangerous disease, much as we don't take it serious, but that is also there. Then there should be infrastructure development. Then also there should be economic empowerment. People now handicapped, they don't have anything where to start from. Then we should also partner and collaborate with other NGOs, government agencies, private sector initiatives, as in to provide expertise. Then, lastly, we should also have a long-term planning. You see, we normally do short-term planning. We should have a long-term planning where we should implement long-term plans for sustainable waste management. Like I told you in Kasese, that is the long-term plan we made, whereby we built 2 factories that recycle these bottles and another factory that makes manure from that garbage, so that each and every home gets the courage to keep the garbage, so that when the district comes and buys, so that it motivates them. That's what I can talk about for now.
Thank you, Mr. Mavuya. That is really good that you give to assist in terms of rehabilitation, but also the model of Kasese in terms of managing this particular situation. Unfortunately, colleagues, our time is very much fast spent. We have about 6 minutes to close our conversation now. I'll give a minute to each one of us to give us what their final remarks as regards the way we manage our disaster in the country and how you think really we can assist government, we can assist our people in to see that we overcome such challenges as we grow as a nation. I will start with you, Madam Gift Hadia, in a minute.
Yes, Philip, help me. Help me. Help me. Put me up to speed. I had taken a natural call.
We want to hear your final remarks in less than a minute about how we can move forward as a country from the disasters that often befall us as a country in less than a minute.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So for me, the first part is really sensitization. I think the government needs to work hand in hand with all our local leaders and so many implementing partners there. Maybe now we need to change our drivers in environmental change, disaster management, because that is something that does not happen mostly. Most of the programs are talking about health. We understand we are having challenges with our health system strengthening and all, but I think we need to change drivers and target health, then sensitize people because we take too many things for granted. The fact that even someone will just eat something from a cavera and just dumps there, and it is business as usual, we continue like that, but we don't know the impact that when it rains, this thing is going to be maybe taken somewhere and it will block a drainage, which will cause then flooding. So much has to be done in order to affect behavior change when it comes to protecting the environment here in Uganda. But also, what is I think the government needs to strengthen the disaster management team. How do they forecast some of these things? How have they prepared us? Because I have really been reading, and you see in some other countries, even just weather, because for them, usually they experience disasters. When you look at a country like Japan, Korea, given that they are surrounded by water bodies, they are looking at are they called typhoons, those tsunamis and all. So they are very, very attentive, and that they have learned because of what happened to Japan. They have learned, but time and again Uganda hasn't learned. Yes, Bududa has mudslides. After some time, when the season comes, people go back. There is nothing that has been forecasted, nothing that has been taken too serious to eradicate these people. If we could have like a national kind of announcement that tells us that today this is what we are expecting, be able to, maybe this is the weather, you should be able to be alert for this and this. Maybe we expect this river to overflow, you should be, now move away.
Yes, as you conclude,
the mandate taken on. Yeah, so for me, I think it's basically that, changing drivers, planning, sensitization, and maybe calling on for more donors to help us create that impact change when it comes
to. Thank you so much, Madam Gift, and time is up. Thank you so much for that recommendation and what you tell us. Mr. Birende, your final remarks.
I want to thank you so much, Phillip, for hosting us. Madam Rhoda noted something about the physical planning. It is very important. Fortunately, Masaka City Council on the 14th of March approved the physical planning. Physical
your camera seems to be facing on your roof, not yourself. Yes, now we can see it.
Yeah, like I was saying, Masaka City Council, fortunately, on the 14th of March, approved the physical development plan, waiting for the Ministry of Housing, Technical Planning Committee, and the Physical Planning Development Committee for the final approval. So I guess once that is done, that plan is so comprehensive that it has a number of garbage centers and the like. Going forward, that may not happen to Masaka in case it is approved as soon as immediately. As I conclude, it's a shared responsibility for all of us as Ugandans. Government, how we dispose our garbage, that is very crucial. Increased funding to the local government in as far as garbage collection and the like, those are very, very important. All these local governments would have wished to collect their garbage, but they run short of resources. So once that is done, I know shall be in a position to manage the rest of the disasters. I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birende Jamir from Masaka for that comprehensive advice to us, but also your views. Mr. Mavuya, Chris, your final remarks briefly, if you can use less than a minute.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Phil. I think I will just give my final remarks based on how we handle or how we are trying to handle the disasters that befall us in Kasese. Because around 2 years ago, Ministry sent a team through the office of the Prime Minister to come and mitigate and see how we can promote a more resilient and sustainable future to control the risk, the impact of disasters. So we came up with a few points how we can mitigate this disaster risk framework, reduction framework. That one we are doing it. Early warning systems we are doing them. Community-based initiatives, we engage the communities to also be part of these initiatives. Then infrastructure development, we are improving infrastructure. Then environmental conservation, like the way Madam Gift said that when you are eating something using a kavera, you shouldn't just dispose it off. Kindly take it home and burn it, or see a way of how you can remove it. Then we should also adopt climate initiative. Then emergency preparedness, we are doing them. We are also collaborating with other partners like NGOs. We should also endeavor to be doing research. If you're going to
Thank you, Mr. Chris. Thank you so much for those views. And lastly, Madam Nyaribi, just as briefly as you can put it, your final remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, colleagues. I think this has been very good to share. And basically, my final remarks about these issues of disaster. One, I just want to say that we need to be proactive. By being proactive, we are able to identify the risks, the potential risks around us in regards to disaster, and then devise different mechanisms or safeguards to try and mitigate or avoid or reduce on the impact of these disasters. And then once we are proactive, then we are able to mitigate these disasters. And by mitigation, my colleagues have talked about a number of things: tree planting, for instance, evacuating people, all that. And then we prepare, we respond. And in case it has happened, we should be able to have very good recovery mechanisms that should be put in place to ensure that we recover. For instance, what has happened in Kiteezi, I had my sister mentioning that the trucks are still going there delivering more garbage. I think that shouldn't be happening right now. So we need to change the way we are doing things, and by doing that, we shall reduce on the impact of these disasters on our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Nyaribi, Rhoda, for those views and for making time to be with us here. Madam Gift Hadia, thank you so much for your views and for making time to join us today. Mr. Mavuya, Chris, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. And Mr. Birende Jamir, thank you so much for your views and for making time to be with us on this conversation about the crisis of disaster management in this country, and specifically looking at the most recent Kiteezi incident. Thank you so much, and special thanks to all the people out there viewing us, following us on Civic Space TV. We appreciate your time and your effort to see that you contribute passively on this conversation, but also keep the feedback and comments coming in to see how better we can engage as a country. I remain Phillip, and I send my special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance for again putting together all the work that we are doing here. And from us, we say good evening, and may you have freedom always.